Yeah, yeah. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. Four. Arrows up. Arrows up. Let's go. You don't want this. Oh, I got my back. Let's go.
Oh, wow. What do you know about the Boston Tea Party? Well, when I ask most people what they know about the Boston Tea Party, they kind of like give me what is written right here in the History Channel on their history.com website. Let's go over it, right? What do they tell us in school, right? And what's up with all these Indians right here? Was it really Indians? It says here the Boston Tea Party was a political protest that occurred on December 16th, 1773, at Griffin's Wharf in Boston, Massachusetts. American colonists frustrated and angry at Britain for imposing taxation without representation on 342 chests of tea imported by the British East India Company. If you guys recollect on my past presentations regarding the Sephardic Jews and the Moorish crypto merchants that were controlling, a lot of them were the heads of the British East India Company and West India Company, these so-called Dutch. That's who they're referring to right here. So they dumped their tea into the harbor. Who did that? Some random, normal colonist? The event was the first major act of defiance to British rule over the colonists. It showed Great Britain that Americans wouldn't take taxation and tyranny sitting down, and rallied American patriots across the 13 colonies to fight for independence. All right. So it was just some common patriots who were just fighting for their rights. Now, we all know what they told us in school, but let's get into the origin of this Boston Tea Party. Who were the people that did it? Why? And what was the history before that? This is The Loyal Nine, part of the Boston Brahmin series, book 1 by Bobby Acard. Go to this part of the book. It says here, The Loyal Nine. A lot of you probably never heard of the Loyal Nine. We're going to learn about who these people were and the important influence it had on the history of the American colonies and the American Revolution. Boston, Massachusetts became the epicenter of the colonists' opposition to British rule. In 1765, a group of Bostonians formed a social club, in parentheses, right, a fraternal order, like a secret society, attempting to avoid the scrutiny a political organization might provoke. Their purpose, however, was more than social. This group of 9 Bostonians formed and operating in secrecy, plotted a response to the Stamp Act. All right, that's what we just heard about the Boston's Tea Party, right? They were protesting the Stamp Act. They called themselves the Loyal Nine. Although they were respectable merchants, again, who's the merchants, and tradesmen, they were not necessarily the most prominent Bostonians. They were private and unassuming, avoided undue publicity, and were diligent in their secretiveness. The names of the Loyal Nine aren't prominent in American history books, but these 9 men sowed the seeds of the American Revolution. They were average, hardworking Americans fighting against tyrannical rule. All right, we're going to see what was their real purpose, Everybody has a purpose, right? Everything sounds like a nice story until you find out these people were Freemasons. And there's a deeper history underneath all these wars. Very little is known about the Loyal Nine as they operated in complete secrecy. Since they were a close-knit group made up of 9 men, the organization functioned informally and left very little in terms of paper trail. The membership of the Loyal Nine consisted of Club Secretary John Avery, a distiller by trade; Henry Bass, a cousin of Samuel Adams. He's a cousin of Samuel Adams again. We're going to see who he is. We know about his history, right? A lot of people do. Thomas Chase, a distiller; Stephen Cleverly, a brazier; Thomas Crafts, a painter; Benjamin Edes, a printer of the Boston Gazette. Printer of the Boston Gazette. All right, they controlled the newspaper. Joseph Field, a ship captain; John Smith, a brazier; and George Trott, a jeweler. All 9 men would go on to become active members of the Sons of Liberty, and 4 of the 9 men are documented to have participated in the Boston Tea Party. All right, so it wasn't some random people. So I just brought up the Sons of Liberty. All right, we're going to get into the Sons of Liberty. I know a lot of you already heard of the Sons of Liberty, but these are the forerunners to the Sons of Liberty. For 10 years following the formation of the Loyal Nine, tensions between the British government and the colonists grew. As pressures built in America, chapters of the Sons of Liberty were formed all over the 13 colonies, especially throughout New England, Virginia, and the Carolinas. As the independence movement grew, so did the colonists desire to adopt some form of heraldry. Heraldry was used throughout history as a means to express a group's pride and loyalty. In 1767, the Loyal Nine adopted a 5 red and 4 white vertical striped flag as the group's formal standard. It became known as the Rebellious Flag, and the 9 stripes paid tribute to the Loyal Nine. All right, you guys hear that? The origin of this flag? With the Rebellious Flag and the groundswell of support for independence came the Sons of Liberty. We're in the ConstitutionFacts.com website. Says here, Voices of the Revolution, Sons of Liberty. Says here, when Britain imposed intolerable acts throughout the 1750s and 60s, a great number of men became extremely angry and began to act violently against British loyalists in the colonies. Mobs sprung up all over the colonies, raining terror on those who remained faithful to the crown. And this is like an example of something that was going around that time. It says, the true-born Sons of Liberty are desired to meet under Liberty Tree at 12 o'clock this day to hear the public resignation under oath of Andrew Oliver, Esquire, distributor of stamps for the province of the Massachusetts Bay. A resignation? Yes. One of these groupings would be a secret Boston association known as the Loyal Nine, composed of elite gentlemen. All right, so they were elite, they had money, they were merchants and tradesmen, printers. All right, they were important, even though they said they weren't that important in the last book. Mainly lawmen and artisans, who met discreetly to organize ways to begin to effectively oppose the actions of the crown. The Loyal Nine were responsible for putting boundaries on the rampant violence of Boston and set limits on how far the demonstration should progress. They actively stood against the British policies they found to be immoral and unlawful, and had their hands in projects such as the Boston Tea Party. The original members were Henry Bass, Joseph Field, John Smith, Thomas Chase, John Avery, Stephen Cleverly, Benjamin Edes, George Trott, and Thomas Crafts. But Samuel Adams would eventually become involved in the group, adopting a role as one of its leading members. John Adams, aware of his second cousin's role in the group, did not exactly approve of the methods used and kept his distance from the organization. As time progressed and frustration with the crown began to heat up in the colonies, the Loyal Nine merged into a more famous organization known as the Sons of Liberty. All right, I'm going to list out these members. Says the members of this group were Samuel Adams. Real quick, let's not forget. All right, we've gone over this information before. This is the book Jews and Muslims in British Colonial America. It says here in a part of a book, omitting the obvious Hebrew and European Jewish surnames in Stern, some of the surprising entries into the annals of colonial America Jewry include Adams, right? Adams, so Adams is in there. In another part of the book, it says, in Appendix F are listed the given and last names of the original Massachusetts-based settlers. The list contains a vivid cross-section of Sephardic and Moorish nomenclature. Abel is Hebrew, as are Adams and Agar. Alger is Moorish for Algeria. Now, it's also going to mention that Paul Revere is part of that group. We already know that Paul Revere, as it says here, LeBarry knows that it was the Huguenots who brought the Jewish Moorish craft of silver work into Massachusetts. In 1686, among the best known were Jeremiah Dumas, John Connie, and Paul Revere. Further down it says, even the man with whom Paul Revere wrote to warn the British arrival for war in 1775 bore a Sephardic surname, Dawes, as already pointed out, a derivative of David. The names of some physicians practicing in Boston in 1760 to 1775 are also informative. All right, and it lists Samuel Adams. In another part of the book, it says Adams, with two D's, or Adams, is a Hebrew surname quite plainly, okay? Adam, right? The first man. It has become naturalized as English Christian because two American presidents' cousins bear the name. Yet, it would be more historically sensible to consider that Adams' presidents were likely of Jewish descent than to assume, as has generally been done, that the Adams surname is Christian. In the case of this specific Quaker family in Pennsylvania, the use of Talmudic rabbinic names such as Ephraim would seem to be further evidence of crypto-Jewish practice. All right, it was the Quakers. So you guys get the point regarding Adams. So again, members of the Sons of Liberty were Samuel Adams, Joseph Warren, Paul Revere, okay, Huguenot. We've already proved it. Check out the previous presentations. And it says here, Benedict Arnold. Oh, okay. Benedict Arnold, huh? So real quick, we're going to go to a video I uploaded back in March of this year. It's called Historic Black Americans Thought to Be White, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Whitewash History, all right? This is the cover. So let's see what Benedict Arnold really looked like. Again, one of the Sons of Liberty. This book right here says Benedict Arnold, A Traitor in Our Midst by Barry Wilson. It says here, in those early New Haven days, according to one biographer, Arnold had a strong physical appearance with a distinctive nose, a high forehead, suggesting intelligence, a prominent chin and great piercing eyes. Elsewhere, he has been as short, swarthy, and hard muscled. According to the Encyclopedia of the American Revolution, he was 5'9", so he's not that short, tall, with gray eyes set by black hair and a swarthy complexion. Who's saying that? The Encyclopedia of American Revolution, saying that he has a swarthy complexion. Benedict Arnold, 1740, senior officer of the British Army who commanded the American Legion in later part of the Revolutionary War. He is best known for his defection from the Continental Army to the British side of the conflict in 1780. So a traitor, right? We'll call him a traitor. These were spies, really. They were swarthy spies. In Encyclopedia of American Revolution, they describe him as swarthy. Does this look like a swarthy person to you?
Nah.
No, this is not swarthy.
He got rosy cheeks.
They're trying to make swarthy into a whole different thing here. Another body snatcher, ladies and gentlemen. And then this is The Legends of the American Revolution, 1776, or Washington and His. And then it says George Lippert. This is an older book, a more primary source. All right, what is it saying about Benedict Arnold? It says that they tell me that his features, swarthy and battle-worn, lost every trace of vivacity. They were rigidly fixed, the lips compressed, the bow calm and unfrown, and wore an expression that no one could read, while his eyes had a wildness in their gleam, a fire in their glance, and told somewhat of the supernatural struggle of work within him, the battle between Arnold's revenge and Arnold's pride. All right, Arnold, the swarthy guy. This is from Claremont Review of Books.
The regulars are coming. It says Rick Atkinson's Revolutionary War trilogy looks fair to become the standard account of the war that brought the American Republic into being by Andrew Roberts. All right. It says similarly, Atkinson depicts Benedict Arnold as a muscular and graceful with black hair, a swarthy complexion, and that long beaky nose. He was adept at fencing, boxing, sailing, shooting, riding, and ice skating, and was a fine captain as America would produce that century, a man born to lead other men in dark of night.
All right. So you guys get the idea. Yeah, so Benedict Arnold, again, one of the Sons of Liberty members, along with Paul Revere and Samuel Adams. These all could be possibly people of color. Don't assume these are all white people. As you guys can see, Benedict Arnold is being described as a swarthy fellow, so-called black. Now make sure to get all this video. It's a great video. I have a lot of references of different people in colonial history that we thought were so-called white, but they're being described with a dark complexion, and the way they look like any of the paintings of them at all. Back again, there was John Warren, Paul Revere, Benjamin East, John Hancock, who signed the Declaration. John Hancock, right? William McKay, James Otis, Charles Thompson, Oliver, pull up a lot. So again, well-organized patriot of the Stamp Act. About the Loyal Nine. Paper trail. Labor. VA and the James T. Laney Doctor of Philosophy. Earlier in the summer of Midland, Boston needed to resist the Massachusetts popular opinion against the campaign. One of the Loyal Nine said they or respect executed crowd action. Consequently, the Loyal Nine, Henry Swift, McIntosh, disaffected laboring community. The Loyal Nine, two men, they had years of the state. All right, the Pope State gang. And a assistance in organizing demonstration. The Loyal Nine recruited McIntosh and Swift to organize 14 protests based on the ability to organize the town's laborers and plan crowd actions, and selecting the respective leaders of the Pope's celebration. The Loyal Nine sought an influence over the laboring community that they otherwise would have been unable to obtain. Based on the progression of the August 14 demonstrations, it seems very likely that Swift and McIntosh planned the entirety of the August 14 demonstrations as a modified version of the Pope's Day ritual. The effigies, the procession, and the bonfire atop Fort Hill almost exactly mirrored the sequence repeated on Pope's Day. Either the Loyal Nine had studied the Pope's Day celebrations and broken them down into constituent parts, or more plausibly, Swift and McIntosh organized a crowd action along the lines of Pope's Day to ensure that it would be accepted and carried out by the laboring community. You guys got to understand what this means. Pope's Day. So Pope's Day, or Pope's Night, as it says here, right? Also called Pope Day or Pope's Day, was an anti-Catholic holiday. Anti-Catholic. So it was Protestants, Sephardic Jews, Moors doing this, Protestants, Huguenots. It was celebrated annually on November 5th in the colonial United States. It evolved from the British Guy Fawkes Night, which commemorates the failure of the gunpowder plot of 1605. Pope Night was most popular in the seaport towns of New England, especially in Boston, where it was an occasion for drinking, rioting, and anti-elite protests by the working class. Gang violence became part of the tradition in the 1740s, with residents of different Boston neighborhoods battling for the honor of burning the Pope's effigy. Again, as we read in this article, the Loyal Nine were behind it all. This power dynamic suggests that rather than controlling the laboring community and dictating orders, the Loyal Nine could only request assistance from working leaders. Having practiced challenging the social hierarchy during Pope's Day, the laboring community agreed to employ their tradition of misrule for political protest. There you go. All right, so we're back on BostonTeaPartyShip.com. This here, Sons of Liberty, the masterminds of the Boston Tea Party. The Sons of Liberty, a well-organized patriot paramilitary political organization shrouded in secrecy, was established to undermine British rule in colonial America and was influential in organizing and carrying out the Boston Tea Party. The origin and founding of the Sons of Liberty is unclear, but history records the earliest known reference to the organization to 1765 in the thriving colonial port cities of Boston and New York. More than likely, the Boston and New York chapters of the Sons of Liberty were deliberately established at the same time and worked as an underground network in conjunction with each other. It is believed the Sons of Liberty was formed out of earlier smaller scale like-minded patriot organizations such as the Boston Caucus Club and the Loyal Nine, right? Membership was made up of males from all walks of colonial society, but was notorious in recruiting tavern mongers, wharf rats, and other seedy characters looking to cause trouble. Under the cover of darkness, the Boston chapter of the organization held their meeting under the Liberty Tree, and the New York chapter under the Liberty Pole. The Liberty Tree was located in Hanover Square, the most public part of Boston, and was a 120-year-old stately elm, with branches that seemed to touch the skies, according to the Boston Gazette. Taverns with owners sympathetic to the Patriot cause were also the favorite meeting places of the Sons of Liberty. The Green Dragon Tavern in Boston was the tavern of choice for meeting of the Sons of Liberty, right? The Green Dragon. Despite very little documentary evidence as to the origins of the organization, Boston patriot Samuel Adams is often credited as being the founder and leader of the Sons of Liberty. All right, so real quick, I just want to show you guys, it's not just a couple of people in these societies. And they're not just recruiting people that want to start trouble. These are very important people. This is an actual alphabetical list of the Sons of Liberty who dined at Liberty Tree, Dorchester, August 14th, 1769. And you can see the first one is Samuel Adams, John Avery. And remember, John Avery was a Loyal Nine member. A lot of these are very prominent people in colonial times. They're not just some bar owners. All right, so it's a big list. A lot of people here. A lot of familiar last names. Here's a familiar name, Paul Revere of Liberty. We got John Hancock right here. Hancock, a member of the Sons of Liberty. Now, another name that I noticed is this right here is Robert Hughes, or best known as George 12's. So Robert Hughes, that's him. George Hughes was one of the last survivors of the American Revolution. He was a participant in not only the Boston Tea Party, but many political protests. All right, so I'm going to bring you to another previous presentation. This is from September of last year, 2021. The name of this video is The Mulatto, Indigenous American Revolutionary Martyr Crispus Attucks from Massachusetts. All right. Yeah, he was a native Indian. This is a very good video right here. Make sure to check it out if you haven't. We're going to go to a specific part when we're talking about Robert Hughes, right? George Robert Hughes. We're going to go about 15 minutes into this video, and we're going to read this book right here, right? Written by Robert Hughes himself.
Called A Retrospect of the Boston Tea Party, with a memoir of George R.T. Hughes, a survivor of the little band of patriots who drowned the tea in Boston Harbor. You hear this? So one of the persons who actually threw the tea over, right? From his own account, one of the persons, right, that dressed up as a Mohawk. It says here that, well, let's go a little bit down. It says, when the committee returned and informed the meeting of the absence of the governor, there was a confused murmur among the members, and the meeting was immediately dissolved. Many of them crying out, let every man do his duty and be true to his country. And there was a general hustle for Griffin's Wharf. It was now evening, and I immediately dressed myself in the costume of an Indian, equipped with a small hatchet, which I and my associates denominated the tomahawk, which and a club. After having painted my face coal dust, blacksmith, with coal dust. Get coal. What's gonna happen to you, right? And this is a coal mask. This is what. So this is what they. Why would they want to look black? Why, if they want to look like Indians, would they paint themselves black? Right? Why would they paint themselves black if they wanted to look like Indians? Because coal is really dark, right?
All right, so that's a primary source from one of the Sons of Liberty members, a shoemaker by trade. But he's telling you that they dress themselves as Indians and paint themselves with coal in their face to make themselves look dark complexion. Straight up, basically, is what I was trying to point out. So as it says here, disguise of Sons of Liberty, in an effort to hide their true identities, many of the Sons of Liberty attempted to pass themselves off as Mohawk Indians, because if caught for their actions, they would have faced severe punishment. Reports from the time described the participants as dressed as Mohawks or Narragansett Indians. The disguise was mostly symbolic in nature. They knew they would be recognized as non-Indians. The act of wearing Indian dress was to express to the world that the American colonists identified themselves as Americans and no longer considered themselves British subjects. They were not dressed as Indians in the classic sense with headdresses and full authentic regalia. Rather, they wore wool blankets, mashed coat style, painted their faces with soot, and employed other modes of dress commonly known at the time as Indian dress, which had been adopted by soldiers during the French and Indian War. An observer of the Boston Tea Party, John Andrews, wrote the following in 1773. They say the actors were Indians. Whether they were or not to a transient observer, they appeared as such, being clothed in blankets with the heads muffled and copper-colored countenances, dark complexion, copper-colored, each being armed with a hatchet or axe and pair pistols. Nor was their dialect different from what I conceived these geniuses to speak. All right, they were even talking the dialect of the Mohawks or Iroquois, as their jargon was unintelligible to all but themselves. So up here, real quick, they said they painted their faces with soot. Just want to show you guys, soot is the same thing. A black powdery or flaky substance consisting largely of atmospheric carbon. All right. In his face. What's the difference? They painted themselves to look like Indians. Very archives and Society of Tammany order. Let me, for a reason, I'm going to system really. Society of Tammany or of Tammany, basically an organization that sprung out of the same ideas and same actions of the Sons of Liberty and the Loyal Nine. The Society of Tammany, or Columbian Order, was a fraternal, patriotic, and benevolent society founded in New York in 1786. It was officially organized under a constitution in 1789. The society played an instrumental role in the development of the Democratic Party in New York during the 19th century, and the names of its meeting place, Tammany Hall, became synonymous with Democratic machine politics in the city. St. Tammany societies began their existence in the 18th century as social clubs in the American colonies, notably in Pennsylvania, and flourished during the Revolutionary era in association with the American cause. Tammany, or Tamanen, was a Delaware Indian chief and contemporary of William Penn, who later acquired the role of a patron saint of America in popular culture. Right? They made this chief a saint, and I'm going to show you who did that. The choice of patrons emphasized the American identity of the society, which initially required native birth for its officers in contrast to fraternal societies associated with European heritage, such as St. Andrew's Society, St. George Society, and the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick. Like other Tammany societies, it modeled its organization, structure, and culture on an amalgam of Native American and national traditions. Its meeting place was the wigwam, and its membership was divided into 13 tribes, representing the original 13 states, led by Sachems. The Grand Sachem was elected annually at its head. William Mooney, its first Grand Sachem, and John Pintard, all right, a wealthy merchant, who's the merchants, and its first Sagamore, or Master of Ceremonies, figured prominently in the society's foundational years. All right, its first Sagamore, John Pintard. So we got Tammany Hall, right? So we just read about William Mooney and John Pintard, who helped found this Tammany Society. Again, this is offshoots of the Sons of Liberty, same ideas, same people. It became the main local political machine of the Democratic Party and played a major role in controlling New York City and New York State politics and helping immigrants, most notably the Irish, rise in American politics from the 1790s to the 1960s. Further down says the first Grand Sachem, as the leader was titled, was William Mooney, an upholsterer of Nassau Street. Real quick, who's John Pintard? Says he was an American merchant. Who's the merchant and philanthropist, right? He had wealth, money. And check this out. He was a descendant of Antoine Pintard, a Huguenot. Huguenot. Yeah, this guy who started the St. Tammany. And you're going to see what else he did. Very prominent person in American history, but we don't know nothing about him. What's a Huguenot? We got a lot of new people, guys, so let's make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. It says here in the book, History of the Conquest of Spain by the Arab Moors, with a sketch of the civilization which they achieved and imparted to Europe by Henry Copey. This is from 1892. Go to page 445. It's telling us how Columbus' ships left from a Moorish port, and many of his sailors were many men of Moorish blood in their veins. It has been asserted that when the Moors were driven out, thousands took refuge in the south of France, who afterwards, abhorring the Roman Catholic persecutions, became Huguenots. Huguenots, and that of these many emigrated at a later date to South Carolina and eventually to New England and New York, just like John Pintard's family, who are Huguenots or Moors. Moors who were driven out of Spain and Portugal. They ended up in southern France. La Rochelle was actually a big Huguenot, Sephardic, crypto-Jewish, crypto-Muslim town. John Pintard. Pintard had inherited a legacy from his maternal grandfather, John Cannon, and this allowed him to go into China and East India trade. Like his father and his grandfather before him, John served as an alderman to the city of New York. Pintard drafted the Constitution of the Tammany Society. All right? He did it. Developed the titles of the members and urged the canonization of Christopher Columbus within the society. That's a Huguenot who did that. The society was renamed the Society of St. Tammany or Columbian Order in the city of New York. John was Secretary of Mutual Insurance Company from 1809 to 1829. He served as Secretary of the New York Chamber of Commerce. He served as Treasurer of the Sailors' Snug Harbor. He was instrumental in the purchase of the property of Staten Island. He also was a founder of New York Historical Society and Massachusetts Historical Society. John Pinter served as manager of the state lotteries and was first Sagamore of the Tammany Society. He was also elected a member of the American Antiquarian Society, so very important person. Again, a Huguenot / Moor. So we're talking about the Tammany Society, offshoots of the Sons of Liberty. So again, as it says in this book, The Tiger, The Rise and Fall of Tammany Hall by Oliver E. Allen. It's going to tell us again that the society's first grand and next soldier who it was mental forces over to the British by the late 17th patriotic and not the real case. It was a who gave Tammany content to let others Constitution version to upper class also who seem to have emphasis really known. Each year's elected the society plus a treasury master of ceremonies Skinsky doorkeeper. The Sakims chose of their group to be Grand Sakim or head of the society. The President of the United States was ex officio considered the Great Grand Sakim. Each of the 13 Sakims in turn was to rule a tribe within the organization, and each tribe had its own Okema, warrior, Makawala, hunter, and Alank, clerk. These subsidiary groupings, however, did not last long and were little more than vehicles for planning social events and ceremonies. Alright, so it was John all that Indian dress terminology, ceremonial practices, and all that. Now remember the Boston Tea Party that many of the attempted to pass themselves. All right, so they were really just a random the same dress, not only improved order of the improved from the Great Council, Great Ikohon, 1890, though the improved order of organization. This is its origins back from the sons. Who that is underground to help 30 colonies. Confederacy. It was Freemasons, Iroquois, with the representatives to govern. The War of 1812 then moved order of Red Fraternity. The improved order of the United States. And secret patriotic and to defy the tyrant. Sons of Tammany. The order we just went location. It says the improved order link. Go to Redman. Pictures, and especially this is missions. Indigenous tribes today. Did their face red? Right? Look at that. But you guys can see. Dressing up like Indians. So history of the 54. Many much obscurity. Personal identity of the 73. Meeting had been called because of the express had attempted to the wharf near Quincy and others. Resolved that the more than 7,000 to persuade him. They were unsuccessful. Continues. Now, Boston Tea Party. No sooner had he concluded and said, instantly a war whoop resounded, disguised as Indian, and hurried down a throng of people. According to previous arrangements, to prevent the intrusion, Mohawks and some others accompanying them sprang aboard the 3 tea ships and emptied the contents of 342 chests of tea into the bay, without the least injury to the vessels or any other property. No one interfered with them. No person was harmed. No tea was allowed to be carried away. There was no confusion, no noisy riot, no infuriated mob. The multitude stood by and looked on in solemn silence while the weird-looking figures, made distinctly visible in the moonlight, removed the hatches, tore open the chests, and threw the entire cargo overboard. All right, you guys picture that? So while they're doing this, everybody's like all awkward, like, wait, what's going on? Why are they doing that? And who's these people dressed like Indians? So it was all planned. It wasn't all crazy. They got to the point. They did what they had to do. Nobody got hurt. This strange spectacle lasted about 3 hours, and then the people all went home and the town was quiet as if nothing had happened. The next day, the fragments of the tea were seen strewn along the Dorchester shore, carried thither by the wind and tide. A formal declaration of the transaction was drawn up by the Boston Committee, and Paul Revere was sent with dispatches to New York and Philadelphia. I remember Paul Revere, a Huguenot and a Sons of Liberty member, where the news was received with the greatest demonstrations of joy. In Boston, the feeling was that of intense satisfaction, proceeding from the consciousness of having exhausted every possible measure of legal redress before undertaking this bold and novel mode of asserting the rights of the people. Resuming a little further on, it says, we call attention to the fact that Paul Revere was sent by the Boston Committee with dispatches to New York and Philadelphia. This corroborates the claim we have made, that these societies were united by secret modes of communication and were in full harmony and communion in the common work in which they were engaged. The connection between the Sons of Liberty and the St. Tamana Society of Annapolis, Maryland, is clear and distinct. While the St. Tamana Society of Maryland was the first of which we have record to use the name of an Indian as the patron saint of America, and of the said organization, the Sons of Liberty was the first organization of which we have record to use the disguise of Indians and presumably their forms and customs for the patriotic purposes for which they were organized. In the year 1771, the Society of Sons of Liberty adopted the title of Sons of St. Tamana or St. Tamana Society and set apart the first day of May as their anniversary, all right? You see, the same people, same order. We quote from our former authority, Mr. Ridgely, and his Annals of Annapolis, who says, in this year, 1771, and for many years later, there existed in the town of Annapolis a society called the St. Tamana Society, who set apart the first day of May in memory of St. Tamana, the patron saint whose history is now lost in fable and uncertainty. All right, so I'm going to end the video right here. Again, I just wanted to go ahead and touch bases on this. It opens up to a lot of other videos I got coming. Wanted to introduce these societies and their roles and the people active in these societies, who they were, just to get a better understanding of what was really going on in these colonial times with these so-called wars. And what is the connection with the indigenous tribes that they were dealing with, and why they were grabbing like their models of constitution or their own constitution that they were creating, like the Iroquois, for example. So these are all future videos. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks for tuning in once again. Pura vida. Much love and respect. Awa.
You could try to play it, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less. You check as I'm chess, what's happening next? Yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson. He got a new engine from pain, that's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take a redemption. Just kill, no discretion. Your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression. You could try to play it, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they're scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they drive the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions and the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds. They can stay soft. You can change lives. You create thoughts. Never waste time. You got one shot. You got one life. Better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5. No mean boss. Just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play it, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way. What I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they're scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. And when they drag the chains, you can say no, free me.